Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Really appreciate you spending part of your day and what is likely part of your lunch hour with us. We're going to be presenting on the CCC MyPath product today. This is the May 8th, 2019 webinar. My name is Sandoval Chagoya. I'm the Communications Director for the California Community Colleges Technology Center. We've taken this opportunity today to look at the product and also explore some of the ways that colleges out in the system are using CCC MyPath today. Let's see here, just a little bit of housekeeping before we start. This presentation is being recorded. It will be posted to the CCC MyPath project.org URL within about the next 1 week time frame, and I will post that URL at the end of the presentation as well. We will also follow up with notice to the distribution list regarding availability of the recording. I want to let you know that closed captioning is also available for this presentation. So if you would like to read the live captions, please look at your Zoom dashboard and you should see this closed captioned button. Just click on that and that will allow you to read live captions as we go. I'm going to introduce our speakers today. We have Mike Caruso, who is a MyPath product manager. He's personnel at the California Community Colleges Technology Center. We're also going to be hearing from Ralph Plaza. He's a senior account executive at MC, and MC provides the career coach tool for the system. And once again, my name is Sandoval. I'm the communications director at the Tech Center. So on our agenda today, it will be a simple MyPath overview, including discussion of ways that colleges are using the tool today. We'll then go into a career coach overview. We'll have plenty of time for Q&A here. So I encourage you to place any questions you might have for Mike Caruso or Ralph into the chat feature of the Zoom meeting room. And then we'll wrap things up with contact and follow-up information. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing and turn this over to Mike Caruso. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Sandoval. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. All right, you guys see my screen okay?
I can see it, Mike, thanks.
Great, awesome. Okay, so as Sandoval mentioned, we're probably gonna have kind of a shorter webinar today, but we'll give you all the MyPath information that you could possibly want, and tell you guys how to get a hold of us in case you'd like to schedule something where we come and sort of present this information to your college in a sort of one-off way. But where we'll start is kind of with an overview of MyPath, and we'll talk a little bit about kind of the genesis of the product, how we got to where we are today, some of the problems that we're trying to solve, and then finally, obviously, some of the capabilities of MyPath as a product. So MyPath originated as a portion of the Education Planning Initiative. It was originally envisioned to be something called the Statewide Student Services Portal, but it evolved, pretty drastically from that original concept, based on a problem that we saw with the application data. And here's what I mean by that. We did an examination a couple of years ago now of the total volume of electronic applications flowing into the California Community College system. So to kind of put some definition to that, what I mean by that is applications that were fully and totally filled out by students, were successfully submitted to the colleges, through CCCApply and received by the colleges. So these are applications that are being successfully sent in. But what we noticed after kind of doing some legwork to, remove as much false data from that calculation as possible. So what I mean by that is we did as much work as we could to sort of remove applications that were either spam or sort of made in bad faith, maybe just to get a .edu email address, things like that. We arrived at what we thought was the true number of total electronic applications coming into the system. And then we compared that to the total number of enrollments that we saw resulting from those applications. And the number was pretty shocking to me. And keep in mind, this was a couple of years ago, but we saw that over 70% of all applications were not resulting in a student enrollment. And at the time, the raw number that kind of resulted in was 1.5 million students had submitted applications but had not enrolled in college. So I assume that might be a statistic that some of you have heard by now. But we do know that the problem has not gotten significantly better in recent past. The number is still hovering around the same percentage of applications not resulting in enrollment. So, that led us to obviously examine what the user experience was for students who were going through that process. We wanted to kind of understand what it was they were going through, do a study of that. And in general, what we found is that it goes something like this. The student will arrive at a college website. They will determine that they want to apply to that college. So they'll find the Apply Now button, click on it. It will take them into the application process. They spend on average about 15 minutes fully completing CCCApply. Once they get all the way through to the end, and this is a process during which they tell us all kinds of information about themselves. We collect a lot of things about the student. And they spend, a good amount of time going through a very large web form. They push submit on the application on the final page, and they get a final step that just says, thanks for filling this out. We'll get back to you soon. And that's it. They have to play the waiting game at that point. So in the background, what happens is the data is delivered to the college. The college creates the student record, processes the application data, does all their local processes, and then they reach back out to the student, most oftentimes by email, and inform the student of what the next steps are for them to proceed with their enrollment. That is placing a lot of responsibility on the student to monitor that email address. That is hoping that the message they send doesn't get buried, because oftentimes what we found is that it can take colleges up to a day or two to trigger out that email and inform the student of what it is they need to go and do next. Some colleges do it faster, some colleges do it slower, but it can oftentimes take up to a couple of days for the student to receive that message. And then you're kind of hoping that they're going to see that message, they're going to follow whatever instructions are in it, and then come back and proceed to an enrollment. So to us, given the total number of students that we know are applying and then not enrolling, that seemed like a pretty obvious hole in the funnel. So we looked at MyPath because we thought that MyPath might offer a natural, maybe not solution, but way to help mitigate that problem. And this is kind of where we landed with MyPath as a product. So let me tell you about the way that MyPath can help to solve for that particular issue. So as we mentioned, when a student goes through Apply, they get that final page that says thanks, and then they just disappear off into the ether to go do whatever it was they were doing before. And then we hope they come back in a couple of days. But it's a really squandered opportunity for us because we have their attention still at the end of that application. So when you adopt MyPath, and there are a couple of different ways you can put MyPath in front of your students, but we'll talk about the post-application version of MyPath, since it kind of helps to solve for that problem we're talking about. They do not get a page that says thank you and then lets them go away. They get a page that says, thanks for your application. Your college has an onboarding experience for you to begin immediately. So we give them the navigation elements on Apply itself, by virtue of our sort of deep integration with CCCApply, and we can get them into an onboarding experience that is customized by your college immediately following the application. There's no need to trigger out an email to give them next steps. There's no need to hope they come back. We can let them get started on this experience right away as soon as the application is submitted. And what they will get when they come to CCC MyPath looks something like this. So keep in mind, this is, of course, a sample account, a demo account. This is not real content. This is just stuff to kind of show you what the UI looks like. But your college has the opportunity to brand it. So your logo, your name, your colors, this background image behind the scenes here, it can be whatever image you want, pictures of your students, pictures of your campus, whatever it takes to make them feel like they have left the statewide systems and they've begun interacting directly with your institution. They've begun their journey with your college. That's kind of what we want this to feel like. You have total control over what is kind of the meat and potatoes of the experience, right? This right here, these advisor cards are the main thrust of the MyPath experience. And they were developed based on feedback from real California community college students. So we did a lot of research with students of widely varying backgrounds. Students who are young, students who are old, students who are technically apt, those who are uncomfortable with technology. We try to pick a pretty wide cross-section of users. And we heard a pretty universal feedback thread amongst many of them, which was that they dislike being dropped into a new web experience and being expected to kind of figure out where they need to go, what they need to do, in what order they need to do things, so on and so forth. And so we intended and we built MyPath to be as prescriptive as possible. And what you have here is an onboarding experience that is very task-based. It's very prescriptive, as I described it. And so you guys actually configure this completely to your needs. So you can say, hey, the first thing I want my students to do as soon as they finish the application is to view an orientation video, or to read a page about my services on my campus, whatever it is that you want them to do. And you create this card here. So you create the name, the description, you add whatever tasks you want to add to that card, and you give them a stepped out process that you determine is the correct onboarding experience that you want your students to begin interacting with right after the application. You have complete control over where these links point. So if you have pages that exist either in your local portal or on your website that you think fit the needs of your incoming students, use these tasks to direct them to those pages in the order that you think is appropriate and help them get the information that you think is required. Similarly, if you want to keep the experience very self-contained within MyPath, you can actually build pages in MyPath itself. So like, for example, you have veterans. Maybe you want to show them some veteran services information. We give you a very easy interface upon which to build content pages like this. You can put whatever photos, whatever text you want in here. You can embed videos with closed captions. We give you a pretty easy way to do that. All of this is very easy to create within MyPath. And when I say easy to create, I mean it does not require your IT staff to do any of this, right? So you have the ability, as a non-technical personnel to go in and build and maintain these pages. It's not required that you be a developer or anything like that to be able to set up the MyPath onboarding experience or any of the content that you want to put in MyPath. It can be done very easily by anybody. So you kind of see here that they get here, they get an experience that's very branded for your college. They feel like they're dealing with you. They get an onboarding experience that is very task-oriented and kind of easy to understand. We'll track their progress as they go. So as steps, kind of check off, we'll keep track of where they are. These bars will fill up. The tasks themselves will check off as they complete them. And we also, understand that a big part of the problem we're trying to solve is to try to keep the students engaged with this process and really transition to that enrollment. And so one of the ways that we do that is that MyPath comes complete with what we call the communications engine, which will send out automated reminders to students, reminding them if they have unfinished tasks, they need to come back and continue to engage with their onboarding process. We want this to be very sticky and keep students engaged with the college to make sure that we're doing everything possible to move them along in the process to that enrollment, to keep their attention until they get those next steps from the college, so on and so forth. We want to make sure that we're helping to mitigate that problem of students who are submitting applications and not enrolling. Now, the last thing I want to mention is that we know, based on talking to the colleges, that there's no possible way that you could build a one-size-fits-all onboarding experience, right? There's no possible way that you could build 4 of these cards with a couple tasks on each of them that will be universally useful to all students, because they all have too many different characteristics. There are too many things that some students need that others don't, that would make it impossible for you to create this experience that's universal like that. So MyPath also has a feature that we call the rules engine. And what that will allow you to do is actually to have MyPath create a custom onboarding pathway for each individual student based on what they told us about themselves in the application itself. So I mentioned earlier that MyPath has kind of a deep native integration with CCCApply. We actually get that full set of application data that's delivered to the college also sent to MyPath instantly when they click submit. And so what that allows us to do is to say, hey, for my students who have indicated that they're a veteran, I actually don't want this first card to be orientation. I want it to be read about veteran services. Maybe they indicated they need childcare services. I want step 2 to actually not be explore careers. I want it to be read about the childcare options on my campus. And you can kind of sort of extrapolate from that, whatever you will. There are infinite different possibilities that you have to create onboarding steps that are useful to the students who need them. So it'll let you kind of help, at-risk populations, students who need very specific help to be able to be successful in college, or to maybe even really determine that college is for them at all. You can do that in this onboarding experience by virtue of that rules engine. So in general, this is kind of the 10,000 foot overview of MyPath. It can sit right after the application. It can help those students who are submitting applications and not enrolling hopefully get an onboarding experience they can engage with right away, remain engaged with until they do transition to that enrollment, and really create an onboarding experience that's custom to each of them to give everybody the best chance at success. So I will go ahead and stop my screen share now and hand it over to Ralph so we can talk a little bit about Career Coach. And as Sandoval mentioned earlier, if you do have questions, please feel free to put them in the chat, and I'll be answering them as I see them.
Super, great. Let me share my screen here. Okay, so you all should be seeing the Career Coach home screen there. Yeah, my name is Ralph Plaza. I work with MZ. We've done quite a bit of work adapting our Career Coach platform for the MyPath portal. We're just really been really privileged to be able to work with MyPath, and really hope that you all see the value of Career Coach being inside of the MyPath portal. Hope you can kind of see the value as I go through this. I look forward to answering any questions at the end. So what I thought I'd do is just show you briefly what's within the tool. Okay, this is the home screen that you're looking at here. And within the home screen, the student can take an assessment, which we'll do here in a moment. They can browse careers or programs. They can put whatever they wanted. They could just type in anything, and information about occupations would come up here. So these are occupations pulled from the 16 career clusters and so forth from the federal government. They could do the same with programs, okay? And so when they do that, they see all of the programs available for whatever it is they typed in, for whatever region they're in. We'll talk a little bit about that here in a moment. Or they could just look and browse. Okay, these are the different career clusters or meta majors, if you will, that you all have chosen to look at. So all of your programs are mapped into these meta majors. So that's a way a student can come and start exploring careers. Another way is they could come in and put in their military occupation code, their MOC code. So they would just pick their branch and their status, and then they'd put in, say, 13 Bravo. And then what that does is it translates their military occupation code into standard occupation code, which is kind of civilian SOC codes you might be familiar with. So these are the SOC codes that correspond with that particular military occupation code. So that's just one, couple ways on how a student could come in and start looking if they kind of already know what they're looking for. Let's go ahead and take an assessment. So there are two assessments. Both of them are modeled after the John Holland code. The 6-question assessment is an MZ sort of configured assessment. It's just a quick test. And what we found it to be very helpful to get students within the tool and start seeing occupations and programs that map to them and so forth, as you'll see here in a moment. So it's been very helpful. We know that it's not a panacea, but really people have found it very, very helpful to kind of use this 6-question sort of entry way to kind of get their assessment. There's also the 60-question one, which is a little bit longer, 60 questions, obviously. And so so those are the two ways that the student could look. We're going to take the 6-question assessment here. And what it does is it tells the student, hey, look, don't worry about the training it's going to take. Don't worry about money right now when you're answering these questions. And then it asks 6 pretty simple kind of questions. What would you like to do? Work with your hand, work with hands-on objects, machine tools, etc. work, play outside. So it just kind of helps to kind of capture who this person is, okay? And the person would just answer, you know, kind of as they go through would you like to observe, analyze, evaluate, etc. And so as they go through this, they say, yeah, I'd really like to do that. Express yourself creatively, you know, use imagination or intuition. Yeah, that sounds interesting. Inform, teach, enlighten. Not sure about that. Influence or persuade, manage. Let's say, yeah, I'd like to do that. Work with facts and numbers, details, etc. Yeah. And so from those 6 questions, we get sort of from the Holland Code, we get kind of who it is, who you are, and captured kind of what traits are kind of your top traits. Talks about what the traits are and so forth, trying to get buy-in from the student to say, yeah, that sounds about right of who I am. A student could retake the assessment at any time right here. They could save these results or download these full results of the Holland Code. And so what it's kind of suggested was science technology is number 1. You see here, there's a 100% match. So through these, we look at kind of the match. So these are the 16 career clusters, as I indicated, and then it kind of gradates down to you know, as it goes down, right? So let's say, you know, if a person could also see their match within these ones. This says it was only 49%, but it's kind of suggesting that this pathway, this sort of subcategory, is a 78% match. So you might be interested in that student, you know. So that's what it does. So it just helps the student kind of understand sort of what it is they like the most. And let's say they're like, well, I really like computers. I'm really into that. So they would click maybe on information technology, okay? And as they look at these, they would kind of see, again, the subcategories underneath this occupation cluster, right? And then they'd say programming, software development. Wow, 85%, let's take a look at that. And so they might click on that and start looking at more detailed information about the occupations that could be available, okay? And so here, what it's suggesting is these are the bachelor's degree. So these occupations would take a bachelor's degree. It's not really a problem. If there was a master's potential, that would be clicked onto, or they could filter it down as well, okay? So let's say here, the software developer's application. So now we're looking more deeply, specifically at that occupation, okay? And then this is where regional information starts to come into play. We'll talk about that in a moment, a little more in detail. But what we're saying is in the region we've chosen, this is the median salary, okay? And a little description of what that means. What I'm hoping you see, and one thing we work very hard is to say, each one of these pages that we go on, a student will be able to clearly understand what it's trying to communicate. Some of this data is pretty heavy-duty labor market information, and it just, hopefully you'll agree, is very, you know, they can assimilate it fairly easily, okay? And so what it's saying is this is how many job openings in the region we've chosen, right? And then these are the programs available, okay? Let me talk a little bit about the regions right now. If a student is coming in through your MyPath portal, your region will be the default region selected, okay? So let's say they're coming in from the East Bay region. These are, like I said, they're doing what matters region. So what you have there is this is what a student would see if they're coming in through that portal, right? And then you see that the median salary is a little bit different. The annual openings is different as well. So all the data that's coming in here is regional data with one exception, and I'll point that out when we get to it. So now we're looking at an overview. So a student kind of can look at about. This is the about tab. So these are the daily tasks that a student would do in this particular occupation that would kind of help them understand that better. This is the national education attainment level. This is the only data point that is not regionalized, principally because we haven't figured out a way to regionalize it. It's a very difficult data set to regionalize. We actually are working on that, but we're not there yet. So still valuable, good information, and helpful for a student. Here's the skills that this particular occupation is sort of asking for. So starting to give an idea of what a student, what is this occupation all about? Wages. These are kind of the entry-level wages, and then sort of all the way up to the 90th percentile. So it gives an idea for a student, it's like, what would be the trajectory possibly for me in this particular occupation, okay? Employment, and this is important too. So a student would want to know, okay, are there jobs? What kind of jobs are there? So the monthly job postings in the region we've chosen, again, with this specific region, these are the job postings in the last couple of years, okay? Again, I think a student could kind of get exactly what this is trying to communicate to them. These are the companies that are posting in the region we've chosen. And this is the kind of the trajectory in the region we've chosen of that job, okay? So that's basically some really good, solid information that a student can look at and sort of pursue. And these are, within the region we've chosen, again, the training that they can get, for example, okay? So these are trainings that map to that particular occupation. I'm just gonna pick Diablo Valleys. And so what it's suggesting is, okay, animation and game design, that's a program. A student can save this, and that would kind of go into their profile, and they can kind of have that on the back end. And then also it has more related careers that a student can continue to kind of search more about what's involved with these other related occupations. So let's say they did that and they said, okay, well, video game designer. Okay, this brings us back to the same kind of looking at the occupation, seeing what the match was, and then getting more information on that particular occupation and what programs apply to that. So that's, generally speaking, roughly what Career Coach has to offer. There's a little video that talks about, you know, kind of the tool, little really short tutorial that the student could pick. If a student has a particular question, they can ask questions here. Faculty and staff also can ask specific questions about the tool, about how MyPath, you know, can help them with this particular part of the tool. So that's Career Coach in a nutshell. Look forward to any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Ralph. Appreciate that introduction to the project. Folks, if you have any questions for either Mike or Ralph, please take advantage of the chat window. There we go. From Krista F. Ralph, I'm not sure if that's directed at you or at Mike. Forgive me.
I think that's more of a question that Mike can answer.
You'll have to forgive me for not knowing what SEP is.
My
guess is they're talking about, okay,
yeah, there it is, the student educational plan.
Got it, okay. Got it, okay, yes, sure. So generally speaking, the ed planning system is a separate piece of software that the college will use. And so what we have found that a lot of colleges are interested in doing is actually configuring some of those onboarding tasks that we mentioned earlier to point to the education planning software that's used by the college. And so what you can do is you can actually set a step for your incoming students to go and start generating an ed plan in whatever tool you're using, and then track whether they've done it and remind them to do it in an automated fashion in case they haven't gotten started with that functionality yet. So hopefully that helps. I guess worth noting, since we have extra time today, is that we are looking also to leverage Glue to understand what some of the local systems know about students so that we can make sure we sync the status between local and MyPath. And what that will allow us to do is, if we can note that a student has not completed an ed plan, use that status also to drive them towards ed plan creation as well. So these are all options that we have. Let's see, there's another question here. I'm gonna go ahead and address that. Does MyPath use CCC username password, or would the student be able to return to MyPath using newly created credentials after they apply? It's a really great question. There is only one technical requirement when we implement MyPath for a college, and that is to make sure that we have SSO working properly. And I say that because students do not need to maintain multiple sets of usernames and passwords to use MyPath. They can use their CCC username and password if they know it. And it's a great way for them to use MyPath before the college has processed their record and created a local username and password for them, for example. But once they do have that local username and password, they can just use that forever. They don't need to use anything they create with us to continue to use the product. Hopefully that answers your question. Is MyPath connected to Ellucian or Hobson's? So Hobson's, we have no native integration with outside of you being able to drive students to create ed plans within Hobson's using the MyPath product. And as I mentioned earlier, we can actually, once Glue is in place, begin leveraging that to understand whether a student has created an ed plan according to the local systems and drive the student to do that creation. But with regard to Ellucian, we are working with the Project Glue team to begin also syncing status of MyPath to your local systems, the SIS. So just so we're on the same page, that is work that we are embarking on starting in this summer. And we have really high hopes for how that's going to go. We have a lot of colleges that are helping us to make sure that functionality is working up to kind of their standards and doing the things that the colleges actually want. And so I would ask that if there are specific things you would like to see out of a CCC MyPath/SIS integration, that you reach out to us, because we would love to have you help us define, the full scope of that functionality.
Great. Thank you, Mike. Again, folks, if you do have any questions remaining, please place them in the chat window and we'll try to get you an answer here. Couple of new questions there.
Let's see here. My college is currently seeking an early alert system. Does CCC MyPath have this feature? So I would not classify MyPath as an early alert system. It is an onboarding system. It's possible that, based on what we talked about earlier, with our knowledge of the student, once that Glue integration with the SIS is in place, that we could use MyPath's communications engine to do some of that early alert work. But I don't want to present it as like a fully featured, EAS system like the Starfish one or anything like that. Let's see, is this going to be cohorted like CCCApply Project Glue adapter was? Can you give me some more information about what you mean by that? Do you mean sort of guided by college input? Yes, yeah. We have been doing that for a number of years now. We have an active user group that's helping us to define how some of this functionality works. We have an active group of pilot colleges that help us test new functionality. In fact, we have a really exciting new feature coming in MyPath this summer. It'll be coming out in June, actually, where you'll be able to use MyPath as a place to collect electronic documents from your students as a part of the onboarding process. And we are going to use our user group to help us test some of that stuff. So if you are interested in being a part of that, please don't hesitate to let us know. And you can let your CRM know, and we'll get you involved. So it's been, yeah. I mean, MyPath is live. We have 30 colleges using MyPath right now, whether it's kind of a split between colleges that are already live with their students or colleges that are actively implementing. So this product is out there, it's in use. And we are constantly adding features, testing them, all that work is ongoing right now. I think there was one more question here that I haven't gotten to yet. So is custom code allowed in MyPath, particularly reuse? And so no, right now we do not allow custom code to be run in MyPath, but if you do have some, ideas for features that are specific to your college, we are looking for information like that, and maybe we can figure something out. I think, Ralph, there's a question for you there.
Sorry. Okay, when a student completes the career quiz, the result does any regrets? No.
I think the redirecting question could happen within the MyPath advisor cards, but the first question still stands there, Ralph. If the student is entirely undecided, what happens with the results?
Right, sure. The results go into their profile, okay, and that's something that actually we've got a meeting later today to talk about how to get that information to individual colleges. Still hasn't been determined. You might want to chime in on that, Mike, but we're looking into how we could get those results to the individual colleges.
Yeah, so the front half of that work is done. I mean, the MZ team who manage Career Coach, they are storing student information from Career Coach based on the student CCC ID. So the second half of that is probably leveraging the glue work that I was talking about earlier to then deliver that data to the college. So we're capturing it already. We're in the process of determining how we can also send that to the college as well. We have a number of colleges who are using Career Coach, both in terms of like a totally self-exploratory method with, that students can take advantage of. And then some college career teams actually use the product using their career counselors, like kind of sitting with students. Both options are totally viable, but we want to make sure that we are delivering the data as well. So that is an active conversation for us. Let's see.
Yeah, I think if they're undecided and the calling code comes up, well, one of the things they could do is retake the test or take the 60-question test, which might be helpful. If your student has done that and they're just not clear, I think the 60-question test might be a little bit more clarifying, if that answers the question.
Let's see. So there is a question: where are product releases advertised for MyPath? So if you are familiar with CCCApply, and it sounds like maybe you are, we have a similar public Confluence space that you can always go to check our product release documentation, get our user guides, things like that. I would encourage you to reach out to the email address that is on the screen right now. That's CRMs or crms@ccctechcenter.org. They will share all the documentation we have with you, and we can talk with your college too if that's something that you're interested in. Let's see. Career Coach looks amazing. Thank you for all the info. Can you name a few colleges in the Bay Area that are currently using MyPath? I can, actually. So we have a number of colleges, and like I said, we've got actually I think over 30 now that are either live or implementing. And so some are bound to slip my mind. And I'm sorry to those colleges for not mentioning you if I forget you right now. Santa Rosa Junior College was actually our first college to go live, so they are. Sierra College, I know they're kind of closer to Sacramento than the Bay Area. The Peralta District in its entirety actually launched all at the same time. They are live with their students today. And I think that's 6 colleges between Peralta and Santa Rosa and Sierra. So that's a number of colleges in Northern California that are using it today. Are you aware of the limits or uses for international student applications and documentation? So CCC MyPath does integrate with the international application that will work now. And I assume by documentation, you're referring to the feature that I was just talking about where we can collect electronic documents from incoming students using MyPath. Actually, the international application was one of the sort of like driving forces for us to introduce that functionality because we wanted to help with that group. So that functionality should work just fine with students coming in from the international application. And again, I will try to solicit help. If you are interested in helping us test that functionality, making sure it's working the way we want the colleges to have it work, please reach out to that email address on the screen, get involved with the project. We'd love to have you help test that functionality. And yes, we are saving those. We store them in the cloud, and then we deliver them to the college either by email or we give you access to a management interface where you can actually view them, download them, all those kinds of things.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Mike and Ralph. We'll leave the chat window up there for a few more minutes. If anyone has some trailer questions to bring in there. Also want to highlight what's on your screen at the moment. You know, the MyPath product was developed in coordination, direct coordination with stakeholders and constituents from within the California community college system statewide. It is very much of the colleges, by the colleges, and for the colleges. So this is, you know, this is a really personalized service directed at the California community colleges. We certainly believe that your college can benefit even just from an exploration of the product. And speaking of which, every college that is in our system, 114 or 115, including the soon-to-be online college, you do have a college relationship manager assigned to you from the Technology Center. So the college relationship managers are within our enabling services department, and they are there to support you in adoption of products. If you're ready to sign up, they're also available to you to have direct one-on-one conversations just in an exploration or discovery mode. That email address is on the screen, crms@ccctechcenter.org. We also have a project website up, and that URL is also on the screen, CCCMyPathProject.org. There is a high-level overview there of how the project works and a collection of other information as well. I did want to highlight, we will have one more of these general overviews, CCC MyPath webinars. The next one will be on June 5th from noon to 1. We will be sending out notification to that, to the list about the next webinar in case you have more questions for us or wanted to direct a colleague to look at the overview and be able to ask questions. And then regarding where will the webinars recording be posted, they'll be posted to the URL that, again, that's on screen there, the CCCMyPathProject.org. In addition, when this webinar is available, we will send out notice again to the audience that the webinar recording is available. Mike, we have a question there regarding how long does it take to get started, and some added detail.
Yeah, just saw that. Okay, so the question was, how long does it take to get started? Carlos is looking to basically set up an environment where they can do a sort of like internal MyPath proof of concept and demonstration for folks on campus there, wherever you are, Carlos. The answer to that question is it's usually very fast. So like I mentioned before, the only sort of like technical hurdle we have to clear is making sure that SSO is working. But if your college is already doing one of the other projects that is connected to the SSO proxy, so like Canvas or any of those, that step is generally already fulfilled. And so all that remains is for you to sort of get a user set up in MyPath and then get the content configured sort of the way that you want it to. The only thing that will slow you down is if you have folks on your sort of project team there on campus that disagree about what content should go there. But the actual act of setting up the advisor card, setting up the content in MyPath is fast. If you sat down for a few hours, you could set up an entire student experience, you know, in less than half a day, easily. So hopefully that answers that question. And again, I'll plug the crms@ccctechcenter.org email address. That the people on the other end of that email address are actually the ones who will implement the products on your campus with your college. And we can set you up in our pilot environment so that you can have like a non-production environment to do your internal demonstrations and things like that. So hopefully that helps.
Well, again, thank you to everyone in attendance. We really appreciate your questions, your interaction with Mike and Ralph today. I am going to leave the screen share up for a few more minutes here. If folks want to jot down that email address or the URL, it's available. And if there aren't any more questions, we'll go ahead and wrap. Again, I am going to leave the current screen up for just a couple more minutes before I end the recording. Thanks again for attending today, folks. Yeah, for the question regarding accessing the webinar again, we will be getting a recording of this specific webinar, and we will post it to the URL, the website that's on the screen right now. Just FYI, there is a collection of basically all of the recorded webinars so far. You may find those of interest. In particular, I would highlight the we excerpted part of a webinar for Julia at Sierra College, who has had a very good experience with MyPath in deployment at Sierra College. So that one in particular may be of interest. Again, this specific webinar, we'll be waiting for the recording. We'll be posting it to the website, and we will send out notice when this specific recording is available. Okay, we appreciate your attention this afternoon. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording and end the webinar. Thanks.